Oh, how far back this piece goes. This is what we've been looking for. Oh, I might even go for a swim.
David, drain the swamp!
Technology has always been the key on Oak Island, but this time the technology saw something it shouldn't have. Drones captured floating shadows, thermal cameras picked up cold man-shaped figures, and all the equipment started to fail. The team didn't just find a mystery found them. Now, production is shut down, and the footage is locked away. A history steeped in shadow. The story of Oak Island isn't new. For over 200 years, this small, windswept island in Nova Scotia, Canada, has whispered promises of a treasure so immense it could make kings of common men. The legend began in the late 1700s when a few young boys discovered a strange man-made depression in the ground, a spot that would later be chillingly named the Money Pit. They believed something was hidden and so began a search that has spanned centuries, cost millions of dollars, and claimed the lives of 6 men. Over the years, the island has offered up tantalizing but baffling clues. There's Nolan's Cross, a formation of huge boulders laid out in the shape of a perfect cross, stretching over 800 feet. Some say it's the work of the Knights Templar. Then there's the coconut fiber found deep underground, a material that could only have come from a tropical place thousands of miles away.
And a whole bunch of wood sort of went missing. So one plausible theory is we're seeing that collapse. We're in the collapse zone.
How did it get there? And of course, there have been bones, bits of parchment with strange writing and cryptic symbols that nobody has ever been able to fully decipher. But alongside the promise of treasure, there's always been something darker, the curse. The old tale says that 7 men must die in the search before the island gives up its secret. So far, the count is at 6. For years, people have wondered if the curse is just a scary story. But with what just happened, that question has changed. Now people are wondering if the curse is not just real, but a living, breathing thing that has finally been disturbed.
I couldn't be as dismissive of the pirate theory after that.
The island's history is a mix of hope and horror, a puzzle no one has been able to solve. But the events of Season 12 suggest that the puzzle isn't just old, it's angry. Season 12 of The Curse of Oak Island kicked off with more excitement than ever before. The Lagina brothers, Rick and Marty, along with their dedicated team, were feeling confident. Clues from the last season pointed them to a new spot, a bit away from the famous Money Pit, in an area known as Lot 5. Metal detectors had gone wild there, suggesting a huge mass of metal was buried deep in the ground. The team felt they were on the verge of something historic. This time, they brought in the big guns. They had everything: ground-penetrating radar to see through the earth, massive deep-core drills to punch through the tough clay, and sensitive thermal sensors to detect any hidden voids or chambers. Fleets of drones and underwater camera systems were ready to go. The production budget was bigger than ever. The channel was betting big that this would be the year. The first few days went just as planned. The weather was good, the crew was full of energy, and the digging was moving along at a steady pace.
Let me just test it, see if it's sturdy enough for a gold dance. Yeah, it will be.
The good news is we still do have.
Almost every day brought a small victory. They found old, hand-hewn wooden beams, what looked like the remnants of an ancient stone wall, and some weird metal fragments that didn't match any known alloy. Everyone thought this season was going to be the one that blew the lid off the whole mystery. They would get closer to the treasure, and the show's ratings would go through the roof. But as the drill went deeper, the mood on the island began to shift. The machines started acting up in weird ways. Some crew members felt sick for no reason, and a strange low hum seemed to come from the ground itself, as if they were waking something up. No one could have known that they weren't digging towards treasure, but towards a terrifying secret that should have stayed buried. The digging was going great for about a week, and then things started to get weird. Really weird. It began with sounds, not the normal sounds of heavy machines, but strange noises coming from deep underground. Sometimes it sounded like a huge stone door was sliding open.
Is that or is that not real? Does something protrude from the wall, and is it metallic? 2 key questions.
One afternoon, as a massive drill bored into the earth, a deep echoing moan came up from the hole. A sound so loud and so scary that the operator shut everything down immediately. The crew just stared at each other, their faces pale. "Did you hear that?" was the only thing anyone could whisper. At first they tried to explain it away. Maybe it was just air escaping a natural cavern or a technical problem with the sound equipment. But then the other problems started. Cameras would shut off for no reason right in the middle of recording. The high-tech data loggers would freeze and the drones started flying erratically, as if someone else was trying to control them. It was as if the island itself was trying to stop them from seeing what was down there. The unease grew into real fear. Several team members started getting terrible headaches and feeling a heavy pressure in their chests, but only when they were near the dig site. One tough, experienced construction worker swore he felt a cold hand on his shoulder, but when he spun around, no one was there. An engineer noticed his digital watch was glitching, jumping forward and backward in time. Even the walkie-talkies started acting up, broadcasting faint, mumbling voices from an unknown source. When they tried to respond, all they got was static. By now, everyone knew this wasn't a normal dig. There was some kind of force at play, something mysterious and powerful that did not want them digging any deeper. That evening, the team stopped the excavation and called an emergency meeting.
It up. I think that's all we can do today. Nice job.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thanks. Time's
The only question on everyone's mind was a heavy one. Should they dare to continue? The unseen watcher. After the strange event started, the team ramped up security. They kept the drones flying day and night, hoping to catch whatever was causing the disturbances. But what they eventually captured on camera was more terrifying than anything they could have imagined. It happened around 3 in the morning. A drone was making its usual patrol over the dig site when its video feed suddenly cut to black. The operator thought he'd lost the signal, but a few seconds later the picture flickered back on and there was something in the frame that hadn't been there before. It was a shadow, but it wasn't shaped like a person or an animal. It was tall, unnaturally long and bent, and it moved in a gliding, jerky way, as if it were floating just above the ground. The most chilling part? The shadow seemed to turn and look directly at the drone's camera before zipping away into the trees with impossible speed. The operator, shaken, saved the footage and showed the team. Everyone was stunned into silence. "That's not human," someone finally said. There was no sound, no other movement, just that impossible figure on the screen.
We didn't do that, but we sure have come up with a lot of information.
Determined to get answers, they installed high-tech thermal cameras pointed at the dig site, which could detect heat signatures. A few hours later, they got a hit. A thermal feed from the area showed a heat signature in the shape of a person. It was standing right at the edge of the pit. But the temperature was all wrong. It wasn't the warm signature of a living person, it was cold, a faint bluish shape like a cold shadow. The figure stood there motionless for almost a minute before slowly fading away until it was gone completely. Technology had failed to give them answers. Instead, it had shown them something that defied all logic. The team was now faced with a horrifying new reality. Had they disturbed not just a treasure, but the guardian protecting it? The moment of discovery was supposed to be a triumph. The drill, after weeks of effort, finally broke through into an open space about 150 feet down. The team had found a hidden chamber. Excitement filled the air as they carefully lowered a camera down the borehole. But what they saw on the monitor silenced them all. It wasn't a vault filled with gold chests. It was a small, crudely carved room, and the walls were covered in strange symbols. Once the chamber was breached, the strangeness on Oak Island escalated from eerie to downright dangerous. It wasn't just about shadows and weird noises anymore. The team felt like they were being actively haunted. At night, security guards watching the cameras would see faint, wispy figures walking around the site, moving through solid objects and disappearing into thin air. One guard quit on the spot after hearing a disembodied voice clearly whisper his name right in his ear when he was completely alone. Then the unthinkable happened. A junior geologist, a young man who had been with the team all season, vanished. One morning, he just wasn't there. His tent was zipped up with his phone and wallet still inside, but he was gone. A frantic search began. Hours later, they found him at the edge of the island's swamp, huddled on the ground, unconscious. When he finally came to, he was trembling, his eyes wide with a fear no one had ever seen before. He could only repeat one broken phrase over and over again. It was watching me. I went inside. I went inside. His mental state was so fragile that he had to be immediately evacuated and hospitalized. After that incident, several other crew members came forward, admitting they'd been having the same recurring nightmare. In the dream, they were standing in the ancient chamber. Strange people in dark robes were chanting in a language they didn't understand, performing some kind of ritual. In the center of the dream, a frantic man was shouting at them in English, "Don't touch it! You cannot let it out!" The line between reality and nightmare was blurring. The crew was scared and confused. This was no longer a treasure hunt. It felt like they had stumbled into an old terrible story and woken up its darkest characters. The experts' terrifying theories. With the situation spiraling out of control, the team brought in a panel of experts, archaeologists, historians, and specialists in ancient symbols and folklore to analyze their findings. Their conclusions did little to calm anyone's nerves. When the archaeologists saw the symbols from the chamber, they were unanimous on one point. These were ancient and unlike anything they had seen before.
2 months ago, Gary and Jack Begley discovered a barter token on nearby Lot 7.
These markings are not from any known civilization like the Egyptians or Mayans. One expert stated grimly, they seem to be from a culture that either was erased from history or never wanted to be found. He pointed out that many of the symbols were clearly ritualistic, designed for ceremonies intended to bind or contain something. Whatever was done here, he said, it was done to hide something powerful at a very deep level. One theory that gained traction was that the chamber was the work of a secret society, perhaps a splinter group of the Knights Templar or another occult organization. They might have hidden a sacred relic or a terrible weapon, and these symbols were a complex code or a spiritual lock to keep it safe. But some of the experts offered a much more frightening explanation. A historian specializing in ancient curses presented historical accounts of spirit-guarded tombs, places where rituals were performed to trap a powerful energy or entity to act as an eternal guardian. You may not be dealing with a simple curse, she explained. You may have broken the seal on a place that is actively guarded. This isn't treasure, it's a sealed secret, and disturbing it is like inviting disaster. The team was now facing a terrible choice. Do they push forward and risk unleashing whatever was trapped below, or do they retreat and leave the secret buried? The theories were getting darker, and one thing was becoming horribly clear. Oak Island's treasure wasn't just gold and silver, it was a truth that something or someone had gone to terrifying lengths to bury forever. The mounting evidence was too much to ignore. The strange footage, the disappearing crew member, the unnerving expert opinions, and the sheer terror gripping the team forced the producers and the channel executives to act. What had begun as a thrilling television show about a treasure hunt had morphed into a real-life horror story, and the liability was becoming unthinkable. An emergency meeting was held between the channel's top brass and the Lagina brothers. They reviewed all the evidence, the drone footage of the floating shadow, the thermal image of the cold man, the psychologist's report on the recovered crew member, and the expert warnings about a spiritual guardian. The decision was swift and absolute. For the safety of everyone involved, the entire operation was to be shut down immediately. Within 24 hours, the island was evacuated. The multi-million-dollar machines were shut down and hauled away. The excavation site, especially the borehole leading to the mysterious chamber, was filled in and completely sealed. Security teams established a perimeter, and no one from the crew was allowed back near the site. The official statement from the channel was brief, citing unforeseen safety concerns as the reason for halting production on season 12. Did they really shut it down for safety or to keep something buried that should never be revealed? Let us know. Like and subscribe for more.